President Emmerson Mnangagwa calls for innovative green investment strategies to foster Africa's economic growth. News Ghana. Hi viewers, here comes an update. President Emmerson Mnangagwa calls for innovative green investment strategies to foster Africa's economic growth. News Ghana. African countries are seeking innovative instruments to benefit from the transition to sustainable green economies, which is projected to generate $3 trillion by 2030. At the 56th session of the Conference of Ministers of Finance, Planning and Economic Development in Zimbabwe, government and institutional representatives called for the use of debt-for-nature swaps, regional blue bonds, regional carbon markets, and natural capital accounting. President Emmerson Mnangagwa emphasized the need for multi-pronged pathways that aid poverty eradication while safeguarding ecological thresholds. He urged African countries to innovate climate financing mechanisms and mobilize financial resources from domestic and international sources. Cooperation between governments and the private sector was also highlighted as crucial for inclusive green economies. Claver Gatete, Executive Secretary of the Economic Commission for Africa, ECA, noted that Africa faces obstacles such as food insecurity, fiscal constraints, escalating debt burdens, and the adverse effects of climate change. He stressed the importance of accelerating regional integration initiatives through the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area and Single African Air Transport Market to drive competitiveness and reduce business costs across the continent. Gatete highlighted that African debt has increased by over 180% since 2010, with 21 countries at risk or in debt distress. He called for fixing the global financial architecture to address unfair risk perceptions and credit ratings that limit Africa's borrowing options. Gatete also emphasized the need for deepening domestic resource mobilization through tax system reforms and de-risking the business environment. He suggested investing in capital market development to provide long-term resources for private sector investment. Monique Nsanza-Baganwa, Deputy Chairperson of the African Union Commission, emphasized exploring synergies between national, regional, and continental resources through investment in Africa's stock exchange to secure long-term financing for Agenda 2063. She called for enhancing the role of the private sector as a source of green financing. Minister Mthuli Ncube of Zimbabwe highlighted limited fiscal space, increasing public debt, economic fragility, conflict, insecurity, and the negative impact of climate change as major challenges facing Africa. He stressed the importance of domestic resource mobilization and implementing the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement to stimulate manufacturing and increase trade on the continent. Ncube believed that resource mobilization and economic strategies discussed at the conference would help countries strengthen their policies and minimize the negative impact of climate change. Rebecca Amuga, ambassador of Uganda to Ethiopia and chair of the outgoing bureau, emphasized the need for countries to invest in inclusive green transition priorities and leverage Africa's abundant natural resources to fund sustainable development objectives. She called for adopting green policies and reforming the global financial architecture to reduce Africa's debt burden and facilitate inclusive economic growth. In conclusion, African countries are seeking innovative instruments such as debt-for-nature swaps, regional blue bonds, regional carbon markets, and natural capital accounting to benefit from sustainable green economies. The conference highlighted the importance of multi-pronged pathways that aid poverty eradication while safeguarding ecological thresholds. Cooperation between governments and the private sector was emphasized for inclusive green economies. The challenges facing Africa include food insecurity, fiscal constraints, escalating debt burdens, and climate change. It is crucial to accelerate regional integration initiatives and implement trade agreements to drive competitiveness. Domestic resource mobilization through tax system reforms and de-risking the business environment is necessary. The role of the private sector as a source of green financing should be enhanced. Reforming the global financial architecture is essential to reduce Africa's debt burden. That's all for now. Thanks for listening. Subscribe or follow us for more.